Hi, I'm Tina.
And I'm Hillary.
And this is the Muck Podcast. We are a weekly podcast covering strange stories in American politics.
Are you ready?
I am.
Because I
can't wait.
wait
I
to
can't
tell
wait.
you the story. So when did your family come down here? When did you move down here?
In the 80s, mid-80s.
Okay, so maybe you might know this story. I was wondering if you might know it. Okay, so first I'm going to set up Fort Lauderdale because I'm doing one close to home.
Okay.
That's where I grew up. This is a story that a lot of people who move down here now have no idea this was even a thing.
Okay.
So 1980s Fort Lauderdale was wild. Like
where the boys are, baby.
That's like Connie Francis the 50s.
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale. I'm talking about 1980s spring break, drinking
Elbow
on
room.
the beach, elbow room,
Yes.
wet t-shirt contests. Kids hanging out of balconies. I remember my mom like, let's go look at the spring breakers,
The strip. That's when you could actually cruise the strip before they changed it. Yes.
Yes.
I remember doing that.
Okay,
I remember
good.
doing that in high school.
Yes. And the kids were wild, right? And so Fort Lauderdale had quite the reputation of being this wild place to go to and for spring break. And the people who lived here were kind of tired of it. Kids were getting hurt. It was just not a place they wanted to be. And so they really pushed the commission here in Fort Lauderdale to make some changes.
I remember because I remember when they actually changed the strip so that you couldn't cruise it anymore. That was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
So they had the police crack down on the kids drinking, and after a few spring breaks, the kids were like, "Peace, we're out. We're going the fuck uptown. Like we're going up to Daytona.
Correct.
We're done.
Yes.
We're done." And so it became what they wanted. They had this whole vision of what they wanted Fort Lauderdale to be.
Yes.
They had this Walt Disney World kind of idea of like, we can get these families to come in. It'll be a totally different, and to some extent they've succeeded at that. I mean, Fort Lauderdale now with those huge hotels on the beach, it's not what it was then.
No, I feel like I could be completely wrong in my memory, but I feel like there was a loss of, I remember maybe some talk of loss of revenue with those spring breakers being gone and like a weird, maybe transitionary space as they kind of reinvented Fort Lauderdale.
Right. It's probably true.
Yeah.
So then we moved like to the 90s. And so the 90s in Fort Lauderdale is like, okay, we've cracked down on the spring breakers. What else can we do? And unlike the commission now that's in Fort Lauderdale, which is very progressive, it was a super conservative commission. Mm-hmm. And part of that was cleaning up the nude bars and the strip clubs. And I mean, there were like rated, XXX video shops everywhere.
I don't remember this.
There was, believe it or not, this is
was
crazy.
it the candy store and those kind of places?
Those were where you could go to the wet t-shirt contest.
Yes.
Okay. So there was a place near the airport where you could go and it's a coffee shop, donut coffee shop, where the waitresses were topless. Like, this is the kind of shit was happening in Fort Lauderdale. Like, it was just salacious shit everywhere. Like, it was just, and they're like, we're not doing this. We're cleaning this shit up. So, there were, a big part of the push was from the Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church, which is like a mega church here in Fort Lauderdale, still pretty big mega church. And the Reverend James Kennedy.
He had a TV show.
Yes. And one of their deacons was Dan Danziger. And he actually was put on the Fort Lauderdale Commission when somebody was removed or somebody left to go run for Senate, and he was appointed. And then he ran for election and he won. So now you have this deacon from Coral Ridge Presbyterian, which is a super loud, wealthy, really wealthy folks, their voices in the community. You've got somebody from that commission sitting on from the church sitting in the commission.
I remember that church in the 90s with people outside with their signs, and they were just horrible.
Yes. They've actually just been named a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center because of their anti-gay rhetoric.
That's what I remember.
Yes, it's not a great place. So one of the quotes from James Kennedy was, "You cannot by legislation make people morally pure and holy, but government can control the baser instincts of man. Rape and murder are immoral, so we have laws against them." So this is somebody who very clearly wants to control all of this. And also, before I get into the story, one other thing that I also kind of I like it is that Motley Crue in the song "Girls, Girls, Girls" like gives a shout out to strip club in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh God,
which is amazing. So okay, that's all I'm saying is like this is where we're at in the 90s in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes.
Okay. So all right. So our story starts in 1985.
Oh.
So a young Kathy. And I'm going to have to double check her name, but I think it was DeFeedy was her previously married name. So Kathy DeFeedy is pulled over by a BSO deputy, Jeff Willets, for a broken taillight.
Uh-oh.
Okay? Within a week, Jeff has paid Kathy's citation and has left his wife for her.
Wait.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Hold on. We're getting into it.
I
just got goosebumps because I just realized
Wait.
that you don't know what the story is. And I'm so fucking
yeah,
excited. Okay.
I have no idea.
So Jeff's wife had just had a baby. They had a daughter who had died from leukemia. So, you know, perfect time to hit the road. We're going to take off and leave my wife for this woman I just pulled over, right? So Kathy was a single mother. She had 2 children. These 2 nuts got married. I'm going to show you a picture of them right now. Maybe then you'll know the story. This is Kathy and Jeff Willets.
No, I don't know this,
Oh my
but
God,
I'm
dying. Look at this picture.
The frosted tips of the bangs.
Pink lipstick. You know this is elbow room style.
Yes.
She got that stream bikini.
Yes.
She's beautiful. She's gorgeous.
She is the epitome of like 1980s Fort Lauderdale.
Yes, totally.
Elbow room
and
lady,
he's very leathery. You know, he's in that sun, giving people tickets.
Look at that tank top.
Honey.
Where's the spaghetti stain?
Listen, yes, that's what's happening. That's exactly what you know what's happening. Okay, so those are the folks we're talking about. I'm going to leave that on the picture table so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so shortly after they got married, Jeff's ex-wife passes away. She had been sick. She dies. So now they had this little girl who Jeff, of course, gets custody of. And Kathy ends up adopting her. So she's living in their home with her 2 children as well. And a huge custody battle happens between Jeff and his ex-in-laws. You know, the wife's parents, they want custody of this little girl. So that goes on for a long time. Meanwhile, Kathy's children wanted to move back up north to live with her ex-husband, with their dad. And she was really heartbroken by this, but she agreed to let them go because it was going to make them happy, and she didn't want to, you know, she wanted them to be happy. So there go the children. And so Kathy, of course, becomes very depressed. And she went to her doctor and said, you know, I don't know what to do. I miss my children. I don't know, you know, all of these things like would happen if your children were gone, right?
Of course.
So the doctor prescribed to her what is the favorite 90s drug of time? Prozac, right?
Goodness.
It's more synonymous with the 90s than Nirvana, right?
Yeah.
And so Kathy started experiencing side effects that to date no one has ever put together with Prozac. She started saying that her sex drive was like through the roof, okay?
Oh, goodness.
There's been no, you know, reported cases of this ever happening with Prozac, but, you know, Kathy's sex drive went through the roof.
So this is her reason to excuse some behavior,
Here
perhaps?
we go. Yes, honey. So this led to Kathy having an affair. She admitted it to Jeff about a month later. And then she said, you know, by the way, all of these things my sex drive is out of control. And he kind of noticed because she wanted to have sex like 6 to 7 times a day. And he was like, I can't keep up with that. I don't know what to do here, right? So these 2 idiots, like, what do? Do they go to the doctor and say something's not right? Take me off the Prozac, maybe get a second opinion? No.
What do they do?
They decide that they're going to put an ad in the paper.
Oh, no.
So that Kathy can have sex with men and fulfill this need, this urge that she had, right?
Right. And so then it takes a little burden off.
Jeff.
Yeah.
You can take a little break. You know, he's got to go suntan. He's got this nice tan. So they were already into the swingers lifestyle already. So it didn't seem, you know,
it wasn't out of character.
It
for
wasn't
them.
out of
this
character.
Is like their thing.
This is what they were doing. So, like for me, it would not be the first thing I would go to. But for people who are into this lifestyle, no judgment.
Correct.
It wasn't something out of character for them. So this is the ad they put in the paper. I'll read it to you. It says, "Beautiful young frosted blonde, gorgeous eyes, great body, hot tan. Of course, he's got a hot tan. Looking for executive for day, evening interludes. Send your business cards to, right? So here's the ad. We'll have to put this up on our Instagram.
My
okay?
goodness.
So here's what happens in the 90s when you put an ad like this in the paper and you say, send your business cards. People,
they get flooded with
fucking thousands of business cards. And this is not like, hey, my AKA this name. No, real business cards.
Because they're just looking, listen, Frosted Blonde Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah,
they're
dummy,
like, let's go.
Yeah, like, here's my real name. I just can't, that fact to me boggles my mind more than anything else in this story, because it was a time when the trust level even, to think about just sending your business card off. Like, who you don't even know. This could be a sting operation.
It could be.
I would question this and be like, I don't know, who's getting my card? Like, no, they send it off because they're horny, right? These are dudes. They're like looking for this woman. Okay.
And there's not even a photo. That's the thing.
Yeah, no. It's this, we're going to believe this complete description. And nowadays, cops, pose online to
I love that it says people looking for executive for day, evening interlude. Yeah. Executive.
Okay. Well, this is a good point, because...
So is this like a scam? Like they're going to try to hustle these guys?
Okay. So here we go. So they get thousands of cards, and these two start sifting through the cards. And of course, they pick out the most powerful names, the richest, the most, the most well-known, because that's who sent these cards in. Like, we're not talking about strangers. I'm sure some of them obviously were strangers, but they found names in these cards that would blow people's minds if they knew that these guys were sending in cards, right?
This sounds like a good blackmailing opportunity.
Absolutely. Listen, that's all I would think about, right? It's like, this is what they're going to do with these cards. So they went along with their plan. They set up appointments, and according to Kathy and Jeff, she would just talk to the men, and they'd have sex, but not for payment. It was really, again, to fulfill this. They considered it a form of therapy for her. Okay. And really, because, this is a quote from Jeff. It was a therapy for Kathy and the men who were all lonely, very lonely in their marriages. Like, get a fucking dog. Poor guy. You're so lonely.
You're so lonely. I feel like, is any of the Prozac sex addiction even true, or is this something they concocted?
This is what I'm talking about.
As like an excuse for fleecing some men.
This story is completely 100% one explanation after the other, as if they were ready for all of these questions. As if we get caught, how are we going to explain this away?
Because it just sounds cuckoo.
It's so cuckoo. And there's a fantastic video on YouTube from the Jane Whitney Show, which was one of these like 90s talk shows where the audience at the end would get up and start yelling at the people. So they went on this after all of this story was over, and they go on to this show, and they're sitting there and they look like perfectly normal people, and they're calm and they're together, and they are giving you explanations and feeding this to you where you're just like, like they just really have an answer to every single question. It's crazy, but they really worked this thing out. Like, they worked it out to be like, no, this is a perfectly normal thing to do, right? I know, honey. So, okay. So then they started to charge for sex, and they also have reasons for this. And also they never considered it sex work. They never considered it solicitation because, according to Jeff,
is it therapy? Like, how are they
the therapy?
Excusing...
All these excuses. So first it was therapy. Then Kathy couldn't hold a job because of this pain that she was in. This urge. She couldn't hold a normal job.
Please.
She couldn't. So then she started to charge, and she was making upwards of $2,000 a week doing this. Right?
Dang.
Yeah. So okay. So here's where it gets a little bit more weird.
Okay. Oh God, more weird?
More weird. Okay. So Jeff would sit in the closet of the bedroom. And the bedroom
so a little voyeuristic?
Yes. So there was like, the slats in the closet door. And he would watch them and also videotape it.
Is this unbeknownst to...
completely unbeknownst to the customer, right? Or the therapy, the
more
co-therapy.
blackmailing opportunities here.
Yeah. Exactly. So he did this for several reasons. Here's the explanations. These are two explanations that he had. One is that they were swingers, so he enjoyed watching Kathy with the other men, and then they would watch the tape together, right? Two is he would take notes about what Kathy and the customer talked about, so she would be prepared for the next visit, like, good customer service. You get to know your customer.
God.
Yeah, bitch, right?
No.
So then,
no.
she was seeing up to 6 to 7 men a day. So, yeah.
A day?
Yeah. And then, of course, my explanation is they were going to use the tape to blackmail the shit out of these people.
Of course.
Yeah, especially the most famous and powerful people in the city. Okay.
It's a deliberate choice that they're making of the people. Give me a break.
Okay. So then, of course, because we're humans, one of these customers became infatuated with her.
Oh no!
So Forrest McAllister, he was a Weston resident. He falls in love with Kathy, and he's convinced himself that the only reason she's doing this sex work is because her husband is forcing her to do it. Which, of course, I love this too.
The poor damsel in distress. Yes, she needs to be
rescue.
saved.
Yes.
Oh my God!
Because God forbid you fall in love with somebody who actually is doing something that you don't maybe agree with, although you're participating in it. But somebody's forcing her to do this, right? It's a very bizarre thing. And also, he always had a feeling that somebody was watching them, this guy, Foster. And he actually, so one day when they're in the bedroom together, he hears snoring from the closet.
No.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine?
So he's so uninterested. So basically he's just in there to get dirt. Why even stay in the closet if you're going to sleep? Just set the camera up.
Well, how about this? How about the fact that your wife is having sex with another man in your bed, and you're snoozing? You're so bored,
snoozing in the corner,
fucking sleeping.
Well, I mean, how many days is this going on? He's probably like, here we go again.
Yeah, another
I'm
guy.
over this.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, this made him very angry. This guy Foster, of course, right? He's not keeping an audience up.
Oh my God.
Keeping their attention. So he threatens to call the police. And Kathy's, of course, this is not a good thing because, Jeff is still a BSO deputy. He's still a deputy for the Broward Sheriff's Office. And it's like, he's going to get in a lot of trouble. She's going to get in a lot of trouble.
Oh my God.
So Jeff, he called this guy and left a message on his answering machine. Remember answering machines?
Oh my God.
Left a message on the answering machine threatening him. So now the guy's fuck you, I'm calling the police.
But now it's on tape.
Yeah. Well, everything's on tape anyway,
well,
right?
I mean, but now he's got himself threatening another human on tape.
This was a time when people
He's a police officer. Wouldn't he even think about that?
You're asking this question as if we're talking about rational people.
Yeah, that's true.
So he goes to the police anyway. Foster McAllister, he goes to the police and reports them. So a month later, in July of 1991, the police raided the home of Kathy and Jeff Willets. They found all of the videotapes.
Oh, no.
A log of the dates.
Oh,
when I say dates, I mean customers and when they were there.
They have a ledger.
Oh, yeah. He was keeping everything. And then all the business cards. Okay. They also found wiretaping devices. Now, here's where this comes in. So remember I mentioned Jeff was in this custody battle? So there was a judge in that case. And these two, the father-in-law and Jeff, they're fighting so much that he allowed them, there's a court order where they were allowed to audio tape, tape the conversations so that there wasn't he said kind of things over this. So they were allowed to tape each other. But what would happen is if I called Kathy and she picked up the phone, she'd have to turn, you have to turn it off. And sometimes she would forget to do that. And so there were people being taped, like she had a conversation with her brother on the phone. And if it's illegal if you're not letting that person know.
Yeah, in Florida, right? Isn't it? It's a 2-party consent or something like that.
So she didn't turn it off. So those are some of the tapes they found. And so they got him on that too. They used it. So this has only been going on for 5 months. So 5 months after they started this whole, endeavor, Jeff was arrested at work, and in his patrol car, they found another log of names and dates and notes about the customers. Kathy was arrested a few days later.
What is his reason of keeping this? Just for the customer service angle?
Well, that's
clearly
clearly
they were going to do something else with this at the end.
Please, because I'll tell you why. Okay, so Kathy was arrested a few days later. Jeff was charged with profiting from the sex work money, which is basically what
being a pimp?
pimping, and the wiretapping. And then Kathy was charged with solicitation and wiretapping. So this becomes a huge media circus, like everywhere, because we're talking about this beautiful woman, housewife, who honestly, part of it was like they didn't think they did anything wrong. She was even saying like, this is consenting adults in my house. It's none of your business.
But
It's the money part that where we start to
yeah.
get into trouble here, honey.
They exchanged money.
Absolutely. So they hired Ellis Rubin, who is a huge, like, flashy defense attorney from Miami, and he was known for coming up with these defenses to defend his clients that were wild. Like, I think it was a murder case at the time. He had come up with his defense. The guy had watched too much TV. Yeah, so that was part of his defense. So after sitting down with Kathy and Jeff, they decide they're going to go for this nymphomaniac defense.
So it's all contrived then.
Yes.
Yeah, like none of this is true.
Right. So, like, I couldn't help myself. I needed to do this. Da 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 da. So more than any, being obsessed with, like, Kathy and what was going on there, like the husband, and more than being obsessed with that, the public became really obsessed with what they called the list, quote unquote.
Oh, because everyone wants to know who's
on this list.
Who's on the list, of course.
Yeah, so the list.
It's like, who was the oh my gosh, what's her name? The madam that had like the Washington D.C. one.
Yes.
What was her name? And she had the list of all the senators.
Well, this happens
governors.
every single time. You know, who's on this list and what, and not the same thing where they keep notes of, like, what did they like, what did they do, you know, all of these things.
Oh my gosh. Oh, and the list of what they like when they're in the
Yes,
bedroom.
yes.
Oh no,
honey, it's not good. So the list of customers was rumored to be a who's who of Fort Lauderdale and Broward County.
I love this.
Yeah.
everybody wants to know. They want to act like they don't want to know, but they're like, let me take a peek at those pages.
Exactly. So it's like with the Tiger Woods. Everybody ate up that story because these women were coming out and talking about him, but it's all of this secret stuff that happens in a bedroom that we're never supposed to know about.
And you have these people that are public figures that we think of them in this one light, but they're like, you know, everybody's got the little underbelly.
Yes.
And we want to know. We want to know the dirt.
Give me everything. So, you know, those great t-shirt shops on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, they were selling shirts that said, "I'm not on the list."
Oh my God. I would love to have one of those right now.
Honey, I'm going on eBay right now to find
Vintage.
Yes. So the police and state attorney's office had no intentions of releasing the list, but the local newspapers and news stations sued to make it public.
It has to be public record.
Totally.
It's part of a case.
Absolutely. So several men...
Public and permanent.
Several men hired lawyers to fight the list being released. It went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. The lawyers for these men said they were due the right to privacy, but the Florida Supreme Court said these men lost their right to privacy when they broke the law and the list was to be released.
There you go.
Yes. So,
Lord.
Here we go. So here's how this story ties into our wonderful podcast. What do you know? Out of the blue, Fort Lauderdale Vice Mayor Doug Danziger resigns his position.
From the church.
Yes.
I love it's always from the church.
Yes. He resigns due to quote unquote personal reasons. He has denied knowing Kathy Willets, but she has confirmed numerous times that Danziger was a customer. So this is one of my all-time favorite things about politics. It's like if somebody is so against something, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Of
for
course,
me.
all the time.
And this guy was so against all of the things that were happening in Fort Lauderdale that was anti what his message was. And here he is. I'm going to show you a picture of him too. This is him, Doug Danziger.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
God, look at those 80.
Right. So like the guys and even women who are so against something, they always are hiding something. And so that was my favorite part about, you know.
I love that. And, you know, I think the issue too, even with our lovely woman involved in this is if you engaging in sex work, if that's your thing, it shouldn't be criminalized.
Yes.
I mean, that's my opinion. But it's the fact that they were building a list that clearly this list was going to be for a malicious purpose.
Yes.
That, you know, it wasn't just...
Yes, because the day after they were arrested, Jeff apparently called I can't remember, it's Pete or something. Oh my gosh, I'll figure out his name. I'll put it in here. But he owned the major strip clubs here in Fort Lauderdale, and the day after he was arrested, Jeff Willets called him and tried to sell him. Doug Danziger was this guy's number one problem, the strip guy's problem. So he offered to sell him the videotape. And the guy told Jeff Willets, "I don't want anything to do with it. Like, it's poison and I'm not going to touch it." Like, you know, he's like, if he goes down, he's going down. But it probably wasn't a surprise to him because he, you know, this is what it's like.
I love it. I love that it's tied not only to the commission, but to that
Yes.
That pulpit.
Yes.
That's great.
So, okay. And so in the end, Kathy and Jeff decided to plead guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. And she was trying to make sure that, she cared about her customers, Tina. She didn't want their families to be upset and like ruined. So she wanted to protect those names. And part of the plea deal was that they wouldn't be releasing the names, although the news media made sure that was taken care of. So to avoid a lengthy trial, they pleaded guilty, and she served 7 months in prison, and he served 15 months in prison. Like I said, there's a great video, this Jane Whitney video.
God.
It's fantastic, the show, and you should go watch it. So part of this too for me was like, what if this story happened today? Would it be as salacious as it was in the early 90s? Because
I think if it involved a religious figure, it would.
Yeah.
Coming from a very
But just this woman working at her house, you don't think it would be as salacious? I don't know.
I think that maybe she would be given a little more. I just feel like because today there's so much conversation on that issue, and there are other places in the country where that's legalized and offering protection. Mm-hmm. But I think that their full intent wasn't to satisfy any urge, but it was to, who can we take down?
Absolutely.
Because even in the little business ad,
executives.
The fact that they're only asking for executives is they're looking for high-end people. Mm-hmm. So if she really wanted to scratch an itch, she's gonna be like, I don't care who's coming in. You know what I mean?
It's quite an itch.
Like, bring anybody. Why does it have to be an executive?
Right.
So there's something there that they had a plan in mind.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the story of Jeff and Kathy Willets, the housewife sex worker of Fort Lauderdale.
I love it.
I had to say, I was very excited to stay close to home on that one, for sure.